Okay, sorry about this. The most of all the cameras and the recording equipment are in the classroom for when we start adjuster training. So the adjuster series for Claim School 101 starts today. So I got to get kind of going on this, and just a few things I want to cover because there's some stuff really ticking me off. So I started to get a lot of calls on this, and it's ticking up. It started last year. I'm seeing more and more of it posted in groups, and I'm seeing more and more of it be a part of what I'm getting here at the questioning and everything that comes into me. So I get the call that says, "Look, hey Kristen, we've had the car here. It's either it's a total loss. It always seems to happen on totals. It never seems to happen on the repairables." They've called us and told us that the customer's 30% at fault and they're only going to pay 70% of the bill or whatever. And I just have to laugh. So there's a lot of things that you could try to do to reduce severity of totals and handling, but to kind of try to pull comparative or contributory negligence out of your butt, so to speak, is just cowardly. So if you are an insurer that is doing that, or you have instructed that, or you are an adjuster that has been told to do that, that's just cowardly and cruel and mean and just lazy, right? Like the claim got to total, you no problem whatsoever through all the handling of the claim, and because now it's a total and there's fees and everything on it, you just want to try to figure out how to get out of it. So you called the body shop, and they, well, that's not working out for us, Kristen. We're calling body shops and going, "Hey, I know you got $3,000 in charges, but would you accept $2,000?" And the shops are like, "No." So now you're trying this. It's always a total. Or if it's not a total loss, it's always somebody that does not have not liability, but does not have physical damage coverages of their own. So you figure you've got this claimant with nowhere else to go because they don't have comp or collision on their vehicle, and that you're just going to tell them no, take it or leave it. What are they going to do? Hire an attorney. So shops, beware of this. You may need to get an attorney to have that you can refer customers to, so they can have this conversation. If an insurer says this to you, that they're going to reduce the fees or reduce what they're paying out because they believe there's some contributing negligence on the part of the vehicle owner, there are some specific questions the consumer can ask about their investigation, what they did to establish it, who their expert is. You can't just say, "Well, we think you were speeding." That doesn't work out that way, right? There are occasionally some things that does contribute to an accident. Not every state has the same contributory or comparative negligence laws. You might want to look it up. I had one from a state the other day. I was like, "Yeah, that's not going to go well." Like, I don't know who told them to say that, but in that particular state, it's not going to go well. So I'm getting ready to record an episode for my VIP group. So for my consumer and insurer relations group, I'm going to dive deep into this topic and show what this is, what the laws are behind it, what we think about that when it comes to claims, what we think about it in the insurance world, why we didn't do it, why this is the first time you're hearing about it, what some of the exposures are to an insurer that does that. So your duty is to protect your customer from legal action, additional expenses, etc. So when you call somebody back and tell them you think they're 30% at fault and you're not going to pay the whole claim, you're actually encouraging that person to go get an attorney and sue your customer. So there are some negatives to that, but we're going to talk about that in our group. So just know that that's coming, but I'm getting an uptick in calls. I do believe it's just someone got a wild hair at an insurer somewhere that said, "Hey, we can reduce total loss expenses by telling people that are claimants that we're not going to pay all of their fees," and then see what they do about that. All right, next thing I want to talk about. Let's just stop the insanity. I am completely frustrated with the state associations that are presenting just really stupid bills right now. Like there's some god awful ones out there. This one would be one of them, right? I'm sorry, guys. I guess that you thought this was a good idea, but there just should be a little like radar tinging in your head that when the insurer agrees with you, that maybe you weren't correct on the correct path. So this one, you don't find fraud because somebody wants to waive a deductible. I mean, I look at fraud every damn day from shops that didn't waive deductibles, that fixed cars wrong, charged to replace parts but didn't. I mean, like, this is one of the dumbest things that I could actually see out there, but there's a lot of them out there. We just got to call it what it is. You spent way too many years doing whatever you were told to do. Like, whatever was being willing to hand out, you did it because you didn't want to charge the customer a difference. And we all know, like, if somebody walked in the shop today and said, hey, I'll pay you $150 to fix my rusted out rockers on my 87 Chevy pickup truck, we'd all tell the guy to pound sand and go to the shop down the road, right? But when an insurer comes in and gives you an estimate or tells you they're not going to pay for something or something that's completely stupid, we've just spent most of the years going, okay, well, I don't want to charge the customer because if I charge the customer, we'll lose our business. And then you want to come back and you want the state to pass a law to do what you didn't have the guts to do. And that's just sad, really, in a lot of ways. But then number two, most of these laws, when you read them, have nothing to do with insurers. They have to do with what the shop is required to do. And I believe that the shops think that if we're required to do it, then the insurance company has to pay for it. Go ask the homeowners industry, contractors, etc., how that works out for them, right? That's not the case. So the policy is the policy. It pays what it pays. Just because you get a state to pass a law doesn't mean that an insurer is just going to be like, oh, we got to start paying that, right? But what you are doing in a lot of situations is you're causing yourself, the shop, to be exposed to a lot more liability. So if there's an OEM repair law that says the shop has to follow the OEM repair procedures, that doesn't mean the insurer has to pay for whatever. And then the first time the shop doesn't do it, you miss a procedure, you skip something, you just accident, whatever, you're in violation of the law, not the insurer. So be very, very careful with those. Next thing, what do we need to do? So I get asked this all the time. Okay, Kristen, if you're just going to criticize everybody for everything they're trying to do, well, what do we need to do? Well, I've been pretty supportive of what Texas has got going on. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that body shop association, but the mandatory RTA bill that they've got, the work that they've been doing, logging, keeping a record of all the RTAs, the margin of I want to say victory, but award to show that here's how deficient the insurance company is by average, just to prove why we need a mandatory RTA bill. So we do need a mandatory RTA bill in all 50 states. Just bring it back. We had it in there for a long time. It didn't disappear because the insurers had some plan to take it away. It disappeared because nobody used it. In fact, if you go back a couple episodes, we talk about that bill in Texas. We talk about what the state did. The state DOI recently did a study on to the major carriers about asking them how many times has RTA been invoked, what claims, what's been the outcome. And still, even after all of this attention we've given it in the industry, it's still only like 2 to 4% of claims. So of all the claims reported, it's used very, very little. So there shouldn't be a problem. I know the insurers go, but if we make it a mandatory bill, then claim severity will go up. Yeah, that's kind of the point, right? You're not paying claims right, and the consumer deserves a way to advocate for themselves or disagree without having to go to an attorney and go through all that cost for a limited return. You're going to spend more with the attorney than you will on the return that you're going to get. So we got to get a mandatory RTA bill in all 50 states. And then the next thing we need is just simply a disclosure bill. It is the number one thing that the insurers are most terrified of. And in fact, it's been specifically asked to multiple insurers about even their DRPs disclosing to consumers what they're not going to do. Like, I'm okay if you don't do it as long as you disclose what you're not going to do. If you're not going to do the repairs and inspections after a collision, disclose them. If you're not going to do scans with the OE scan tool like the OE says, disclose it. Like, whatever it is that you're not doing, just tell the customer, because right now nobody's doing that, right? The shops that are saying, hey, Mr. and Miss Smith, this is how your vehicle needs to be repaired, they're presented as the evil shop overcharging customers, and they need to be blackballed or kicked out of the market. So what we need is a disclosure bill. Simply, the shop is required to disclose to the consumer everything that the manufacturer of that car says needs to be done. I don't need a mandatory OE repair bill. I just need a disclosure bill. because I believe when you put the information in front of the consumer, they'll make a good choice. They may not make the choice that everybody wants them to make all the time, but they do have a right to know what is or isn't being done. That way they can advocate for themselves, because right now, DRPs, you're not doing it. You are not telling customers what you're not doing to that car. Well, Kristen, there's, they're not going to pay for it. Whether it is or isn't in your contract, they're not going to pay for it. Okay, but tell the customer what the OE wanted done and what you're not doing. That's fair. That is an informed consumer. So I think if we had those two things done, it would change the shape of the repair market. It would level that competition field. You wouldn't have the shops that are writing estimates to repair cars correctly being seen in a different light from the other shops in the market that aren't doing that. We would have basically the same information being presented, different pricing, and the customer being able to choose what they do or don't want to do. But it would be a level playing field, which is, I think that's all any of us want, is that I don't want the shop that's trying to do things the right way to be treated like the villain, right? To be told that they're the bad one, that they're the criminal, that they're the one doing the fraud, and presented that way, because, well, none of the other shops in the marketplace are doing that. And as an adjuster, I think it's confusing, because you don't know. You're not getting trained right. You don't know what a good repair or a bad repair or a good estimate or a bad estimate really is. And if you're seeing a volume or more videos, more estimates being written a particular way, the wrong way, why wouldn't you believe that that's the standard, that that's what's supposed to be? So I think that would clear up a lot with adjusters as well, and let them understand what the reality is, since they're not being trained. But that's my 2 cents for what it's worth, right? I won't even get you a Coke these days. But those are the two things we need. A lot of these other bills, I know they feel like if we could just get this bill, things would be right in our market. We would get paid right. We would be able to fix cars right. That's never been the case in the history of this. And then just be careful. You're passing some laws that may come back to haunt you. All right, last thing I'm going to say, just because I've covered it in the past. So they bought a company, $700 million or something recently. We covered that in a couple episodes back. That does injury claim, medical claim billing, those kind of things. And so there's a webinar. If you want to know where your money's going, or you want to understand that other side of the fence, there is nothing that says you guys can't register for the same webinars that are being offered free to that side of the industry. So attend some of these insurance seminars and webinars and learn all about it. This one's going to talk about, there was a time in the insurance industry when we handled everything in-house other than estimating. We had to buy estimating systems, but everything else was in-house. And now everything is really handled by third parties, whether it's rental car, whether it's repair for you DRPs, whether it's bodily injury, whatever. There are all these vendors in this connected claims world, right? And when you hear that, they're not really talking about you. They're talking about all of these other things that are going on out there. So this is a webinar, and it's going to be February 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Pacific, or 11 a.m. Pacific. But when you see these, educate yourself, learn more about what's going on in the claims world, because it does directly affect you in auto. You'll be able to kind of see the bigger picture of claims and everything that's going in it. So yeah, I think you guys are to pay attention and participate in more of these and be active in these things. So there you go. That's one that's going to be coming up that you can attend if you want to learn more about that environment. Well, that's about all I've got for this Monday. Short and sweet, probably the shortest one we've ever done. I have got to get back into the shop. We've got 14 people coming for adjusting for the first class, inaugural class of claim school that starts today at 9 a.m. And I'm super excited about it. You'll probably see some highlights this week of the class and some things that people will be learning as we go through it. But I will see you next Monday on Coffee Talk. Everyone have a great week.